5K left. Getting a little hard now, right?
Yeah, very hard.
Good morning. We are about 1 hour 40 minutes from the start of the Cleveland Marathon, so just getting in a little bit of food. Got the bagel, plain bagel, no peanut butter for me today, and some orange and coffee to get the juices flowing this morning, and then making sure to hydrate with water as well. And we should be getting on the road in just a few minutes. It's like 15-20 minutes down to where we're going to park, and then we'll be getting ready to go soon after that. I think it'll be a little chilly at the start with just the tank top and short sleeves, but should warm up and be fine the rest of the way.
It was pretty chilly just standing around at the start for an hour, and we started in the total back. You can see there's no one behind us here. The first few miles were pretty fun. We just kind of weaved around downtown Cleveland and were around a lot of other runners and people cheering on the sidewalks. And then we ran along the lake a little bit and along the river, and eventually crossed the river on an old bridge into the Tremont area. There was a decent hill there as well, but it wasn't too difficult for us. It was kind of long, but really wasn't all that steep, I didn't think. So we just kept chugging along without too much issue, and it was kind of fun to pass some people there as they slowed down or walked. And since we did start so far back, like you saw, we were passing people this whole time, which was encouraging for sure. And then near the top of this hill is where we saw my aunt for the first time, which was exciting. We saw her a few more times later on. And then we basically did an out and back loop through Tremont, which was nice because we passed by some runners that were ahead of us, going the opposite direction. And then when we got to where they were, then we passed some runners that were behind us that hadn't made it to that point yet. So then we crossed back over the river, and right on the other side of the river there, we stopped at around mile 12 to try to go to the bathroom a little bit in the porta potties. And then soon after that, as we came kind of into Cleveland again, the half marathon group split off to the right. And at that point, we had very few runners around us. There were about 1,700 people that ran the marathon and 4,000 that ran the half marathon. So a lot more in that half marathon. And so it got, I wouldn't say lonely, but a lot quieter after those half marathoners split off. And then we crossed a bridge soon after over the river again. And just at that point, we were at about the half marathon mark. And we actually saw some of the first fastest men in the marathon field coming back over the bridge. And at that point, I think they had maybe a mile to go. So definitely under 3-hour marathons for those guys. I don't think we saw the race leader. I'm pretty sure, yeah, the race leader was already finished before we got to the half marathon mark. But we crossed the half marathon mark at right around 2:30, so pretty much right on pace for what we were shooting for. We stopped at mile 15 for another bathroom break, and I got a gel from the water station there. And like I mentioned before, I've never tried one of these before, so I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I ate about half of it, and it was just so sweet, so much sweeter than I expected. So I was really worried it was just going to wreck my stomach immediately, but I don't think I had too much issue, at least immediately, it seemed. And then a few miles later, we were going through some neighborhoods, and someone on the side offered up a slice of bacon, so I jumped on that. Big fan of bacon for sure, so that was nice. And then after the 30K mark, we came out onto a little bit of a bigger road and ran along the lake some and Edgewater Beach, and we were going there for a few miles, and there were some rolling hills. And those hills actually looked pretty bad on the elevation profile that I looked at before, but they really weren't bad at all and didn't really affect us much. And then we had a little bit more throughout some neighborhoods, did a little loop, and around mile 21 or 22, we turned around and headed back along that same road back towards downtown Cleveland. By mile 15 or so, Alexis was struggling a lot, I think, with some hip and leg pain, and we were kind of talking it through, but we kept running. And eventually around mile 20, I think, we started to do some short walk segments just to give us a little bit of a break. So we would do walks of 1 to 2 minutes and then runs of 5 to 7-ish minutes. And honestly, at this point, I was getting some stomach pain and cramps. And, around 20 or 22 is when it got fairly bad.
Getting a little hard now, right?
Yeah, very hard.
and it honestly just got worse the rest of the race. It really wasn't an upset stomach sort of pain. It was just kind of my stomach hurt, sort of like a cramp, but not exactly like a cramp. So I'm not exactly sure what was happening there. But even with these walk runs, we were still averaging around a 12-minute per mile pace, which is certainly slow, but not terribly slow. And around mile 24, we saw our families on the side, which was great and encouraging. And then probably around mile 24 and a half, I think, is when we did our last little walking segment, and then we ran the last 1.5 miles or so of the race without walking at all. And towards the end, my stomach pain just kept getting worse and worse, and I think I was making some weird noises when I was breathing sometimes, but we just kept pushing, and we sped up for mile 26, which was below 10:30 pace, and then the last little bit after mile 26 was below 10-minute pace. So we really had a solid push to the finish, which I was happy about. Our final race time was 5 hours, 5 minutes, and 46 seconds. And somehow, even though we had the same time on the tracking app and the website, Alexis was ranked one place higher than me.
So got finished up with the marathon just after noon today. Came in at 5 hours, 5 minutes. So just a tad slower than we were hoping for, but we definitely had some struggles along the way. Like I said, a little bit slower, but happy with the result, and honestly pretty happy with our consistency. I mean, we didn't really hit the 11:30 first 4 miles, then 11 minutes 5th mile quite as planned. It was mostly just a little bit faster than 11:30 most of those miles, and then maybe some of them were close to 11 minutes. So that really wasn't perfect, but consistency wise, first I would say 20 miles really were right on pace, just a little bit ahead of pace. So I'm just really happy with that consistency and pacing and mental strength. Even though we did walk a little bit, it's, it was contained to those short segments, and we would pick a milestone of some sign or line in the road or whatever and say, oh, when we get there, we're going to start running again. And every time we started running again, so I was really happy about that. And I did get one of the gels around mile 15, and I ate like half of that and then waited maybe 20-30 minutes and ate the second half, and I don't think it really affected me that negatively at all. It felt fine, but probably the last hour or so of the race, my stomach was really hurting, but it wasn't like an upset hurting, like queasy, or like, my food and digestion wasn't going well. It was just like hurting, I guess, like more like a cramping type, like side stitch type hurting. So I thought I was drinking plenty of water, but I don't know, maybe not, or maybe it was something I ate, I'm not really sure. But it came and went, in terms of severity. But the last few miles were pretty tough for me. I think Alexis kind of, was hitting that real tough section between like mile 15 and 20. But I felt like she got a little bit stronger the last few miles, and I was really struggling the last few miles. But like I said, last 2 miles we didn't walk at all or so, something like that. And we picked up the pace for sure. The last mile 26 was like around a 10:30 mile, which obviously isn't like fast, but faster than the rest. That was our fastest mile up to that point. And then the third of a mile or so after mile 26 was like below 10-minute pace. So like I said, definitely picked it up and finished strong, which I think is really important. After we finished, I did not feel strong at all. Literally right after we crossed and I kind of stopped and slowed down and walked, I just got lightheaded for a second, and then I was just kind of like trying to make it out of the corral and lay down in the grass for a minute, and was not feeling good there, and then had some cramps and stuff like that. Was definitely struggling a little bit there after the end of the race, but we laid there for a little bit, got our gear check bag, which was really handy because we put sweatshirts in the bag. It was, I think, between 55 and 65, I would say, most of the race. So it really wasn't bad at all. The first probably hour or so, it was pretty sunny, but after that, it got fairly cloudy, and so that was nice. But there were some sections that were pretty windy, which cooled us down, but kind of sucked when we were running into the wind, right? But anyway,
after 10 or 15 minutes of sitting there, we were starting to get cold. So, but luckily we had put our sweatshirts in the gear check bag, so we got those out, and that was nice. Walked back to the car. Of course, had like 5 flights of stairs up the parking garage, and actually my parents and Alexis's parents came, and we just kind of had like some food, like burgers and stuff outside at a park, and then just came back to the apartment and relaxed and just laid around and did nothing, honestly. Overall, like I said before, I'm really happy with the result. I was happy with our consistency, our mental strength, I guess, just pushing through the challenges and continuing, even if that meant we had to walk a little bit. We were still able to get back to running, and we had a really strong finish, which I think is just super important. My legs are still pretty sore, but I think I'm going to try to stick to the schedule and do the typical strength training session tomorrow, Monday morning, and then we'll probably bike to work tomorrow as long as the weather is fine. I haven't looked at it, and probably be biking to work as much as I can over the next few weeks to get those miles in for the biking challenge at work. I really do appreciate everyone watching the videos. I'm probably going to make some sort of video next week talking about my plans moving forward, races on the schedule later in the year, and kind of how my training is going to look. But I am going to be doing some challenges this summer, some fun challenges hopefully. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on those. I'm really excited to share some of those with you all. And thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I'll see you all in the next one.